Welcome to the Disrupting Obesity podcast. I'm Charlotte Skanes, and I'll be sharing ways to regain control over your body and lose an extreme amount of weight naturally. Being fat is about so much more than just the food. It's about your relationship with food. That means that dealing with your weight is about more than just the food, too. You have to change that relationship. You have to start disrupting obesity. Welcome back to another one of our spring cleaning Ask Whatever episodes. This is Ask Whatever number 32, which seems impossible, but that's definitely the case. And I am nowhere near done with the backlog of questions that we're facing this spring. So spring cleaning continues. We're going to do another one of these episodes next week. Feel free to send in your questions, though. I absolutely love doing these. They're some of my favorite episodes that I do, which is probably why I do so many of them. And I just think it's important that you guys get your questions answered. Like, I can sit here and talk all day, but I'd rather talk about things that you guys want to know. So don't be shy. Send in your emails, DM me, however you want to do it. You can get a hold of me. You guys all know how. All right, so as usual today, our first few questions came in from my membership, from the Flamingo Forum, from the ladies over there. They always get to go first. Sorry, guys, but that's just the way it is. Membership has its privileges, I guess. Okay, so this one, it's a little long, but I think you need the whole picture here. So here we go. This Flamingo said that she listened to a different podcaster recently, and sometimes they referred to a binge, sometimes just an overeat. And she found that the different use of language was really interesting. Could I do a podcast on language and word choice around overeating? She says that she routinely eats more calories than she thinks she should be, but she doesn't always feel like she's binging. She associates that word more with an out of control feeling, which she occasionally still has and frequently had in the past. She says, I suppose that means that I'm routinely overeating, but then if I'm routinely doing it and I wish I wasn't, is regularly overeating really mini binging? She finds the psychology of the word choice very interesting. So do I. And I think it's a very individual issue. Some people really don't like how loaded the word binging is. It makes them feel really negative, and it's just not something that they're comfortable with. I've never been a huge fan of the word binging either. I tend to use it, though. I also use the word overeating. A lot of times, especially in my program, instead of using the word binging, I'll say unnecessary eating. Food that we know we don't need, like we're not feeling a physical hunger for. We've already eaten the food that we need that day, but we still just want to eat. Because word choice is such an individual thing, and words are all loaded with different things depending on who's bringing it to the table. In this particular case, it sounds like you're kind of giving yourself a permission slip when you're telling yourself you're overeating as opposed to binging, because you don't feel the same loss of control because it's more of a planned thing. It feels like maybe your language choice in this one could be a bit of self-sabotage, right? Because you're saying that you keep telling yourself that you're just overeating because you don't feel the loss of control with binging. But if you're overeating fairly regularly, doesn't that mean that you're having like mini binges? I think you've answered your own question there because it's how you feel about it. And then the other side of this is that there are people who don't like the term overeating, because for them, they feel like they're eating the exact amount that they need to satisfy themselves physically or emotionally, probably a bit of both and probably more of the emotional part. So they don't feel like they're overeating. And that's why I talk about the unnecessary eating, because there's food that we eat that we know that we don't need, but we're just going to eat it anyway because it feels good or because it's there or because we want to have it. I'm not sure if the language is as important as the feelings that it brings up for you and the way that it's driving your eating. Maybe it would be better for you to start thinking of it more as a binge to kind of counteract this cycle that you've got yourself in with the I'm overeating, I'm not binging thing. And just because you feel like you're in control with your overeating doesn't necessarily mean that you are, or that it's eating that you need to be doing. Same Flamingo. Similar type question. It came in at the same time, and it's another big one, but I think you need the whole thing here. So she said, along the same lines as her previous question, words around the quote unquote special foods. I don't do cheat meals or cheat days. That's obviously a loaded word. I don't like the treats thing because she says she had someone say I didn't have to earn treats. That was probably me, because I like to say that treats are for pets and kids who do what they're told. I don't like that language of treating ourselves. That's a whole other thing. She says, but I realize that even college calling something quote unquote dessert seems to give that food special meaning and power. So how do I refer to special foods, to extra foods, the crunchy, salt, the sweet things that I eat in addition to my standard meals and my nutrition, she says. I just call them snacks, or I just call them what they are, and I don't have a special loaded language for them, because I think you're absolutely right. As soon as we start calling things treats, as soon as we start labeling things as special, or in your case, as desserts, we're writing permission slips. We're giving ourselves permission to just go ahead, blow the doors off, and eat whatever we want because it's special. And you're completely correct too. I don't do cheat meals or cheat days. I think we should absolutely avoid all of that. And this is kind of back to the first question about language. The language around cheat meals is just so loaded, and I don't think it's great for anybody. Cheating is such a negative thing. We cheat on tests, we cheat on spouses. There's nothing good in our language about cheating. So why on earth would you want to cheat on yourself with food? It just seems like you're setting yourself up for some emotional failure there. So to super specifically answer your question, I just refer to the extra food as what it is. I won't say I'm going to go get myself a snack. I'm going to go get myself a treat. I'm going to go get myself dessert. I'll just say I'm going to go get myself some pineapple. I'm going to go get myself a granola bar, an egg, whatever it is that I'm reaching for. I just kind of use the language of the food itself. I don't think that we need to label it, put it into a category, a nice little box of what type of food it fits into. It just is what it is. It's a peanut butter sandwich. It's, trifle. It's an egg. It's whatever. Another forum question that came in was, how do I commit to myself? How do I show up for myself? I'm struggling with committing to the deficit. It's really not easy. It's really hard, especially as women. We struggle to commit to doing things that are just for ourselves, that aren't going to benefit someone else in our lives. It's a lot easier to take care of everybody else than it is to sit down and do the things that we know we need to do for ourselves. I think we can kind of view this one like an oxygen mask situation, right? And maybe you need to tell yourself that you can't really be helpful to anybody else. You can't do all the things that you want to do for your children and your grandchildren and your volunteer circle and your houseplants for that matter. You can't do the things that you need to do for any of the people in your life unless you're taking care of yourself first. So it's like the oxygen mask. You need to take a second. You need to slam that thing on your face. Give yourself the time to breathe before you start helping everybody else with their stuff. Sometimes it's a value thing. We don't value ourselves enough. We don't value our time. We don't value our bodies. We don't value our emotional selves. We assign all that value to other people, and we get so busy taking care of everybody else and doing all the other things that we don't take the time to commit to doing what we need to do for ourselves. Fear can be a big barrier too, because you don't necessarily know what's going to happen if you make this leap, if you take the time, put that into yourself, do what you need to do to get yourself healthy. You don't know what that's going to look like. It's going to be hard. It's going to take time. It's probably going to be frustrating. But what is that actually going to look like for you? How are you going to feel? And that can make you feel afraid, which can slow you down and make you less likely to commit to doing what you know that you have to do. Committing to the deficit is very, very hard to do. It's important to remind yourself that there is only one way to lose weight, no matter how you do it, whether it's pills or shots or surgeries or shakes or however you want to get there. Unless you're in a calorie deficit, you won't lose weight. It is the only way short of amputation to do it. So until you're able to commit to the calorie deficit part, it's going to be very hard for you. And there's going to be a lot of yo-yoing and a lot of ups and downs. Tell yourself how much heartache you're going to save if you just knuckle down and commit now. Remind yourself that you're worthy. You're worth doing this for. Your health is just as important as everyone else in your life is. How do you figure out your calories? That one's pretty straightforward. I can answer that one pretty quickly. You're going to want to hop online. You're going to want to look for a TDEE calculator, punch in your numbers, and it's going to tell you your maintenance TDEE, total daily energy expenditure. That's the number of calories that your body needs every day just to function. To get into a calorie deficit, you want to be eating 500 calories less than your maintenance TDEE. Now, I'm assuming that that's the part of figure out your calories that you meant. I'll do a little bit more on the other side, though, in case you meant figuring out the calories that you eat, because you didn't specify it was the calories your body needs or the calories that you take in. So to figure out the calories that you're taking in, use packaging, use a tracking app. That's probably going to be the most helpful. I love ones with barcode scanners because they can just pull it up for you pretty easily. If you don't want to use an app, you can use your search engine, Google, whatever, to try and figure out how many calories are in the food that you're using. Start slow, be patient with yourself, and I would, as always, start with the spread, sprinkle, pour thing. Look at foods that you add to other food, the stuff that you spread, sprinkle, or pour. Those foods tend to be really calorie dense, meaning that they have a lot of calories in a small amount of food, and when you cut incrementally just a small amount of that from what you're eating, you're going to start to see big differences overall in your calories. I've been reading up on intermittent fasting, and I would like to eat 2 large meals a day. But when I read up on it, they said that smaller, more frequent meals are better. Is that true? No, it's not. Calories can't tell time. If you want to do intermittent fasting and eat 2 large meals a day, that's fine. If you want to do intermittent fasting and eat 16 small meals a day, that's also fine. Calories can't tell time. Now, the way that you spread those meals out will impact your hunger. It will impact your overall satisfaction and how you feel. But from a strictly weight loss numbers, calories perspective, no, you can eat as few or as many as you want. OMAD was really big a few years ago. That's the 1 meal a day style of intermittent fasting. So yeah, totally. It is not true. You can do it however you'd like. The important thing is just narrowing that window down and getting yourself to a place where you're spreading your calories out in a way that leaves you feeling satisfied, so you don't feel like you're starving all the time, so that you're not eating food that you don't necessarily want to eat. How much water should you drink? I'm a little different because I got the kidney disease thing going on, so I need at least 3 liters of water. But generally speaking, I believe for women, it's 92 ounces a day. At my heaviest, I weighed just over 400 pounds. Several years ago, I had gastric sleeve surgery and lost 100 pounds. I've gained back 50. I learned the hard way that it's really a mental game and your relationship with food. What would your 3 pieces of advice be for someone like me? Try not to beat yourself up too much. That's going to be first and foremost. I know there's a lot of guilt and shame and a whole bunch of other feelings that can come along with regain. Let's not do that. It's as they say, the milk is spilt. It's done. You've gained the weight back, and that's fine. We're just going to move forward from here. There's no point looking back and beating yourself up. Feeling bad about myself has never once, not even a single time, stopped me from eating, but feeling good about myself has stopped me more times than I can count. So please don't beat yourself up. That's number 1. Number 2 would be start slowly and make your changes incrementally again, so that this time you're giving yourself the emotional space to try and work on that relationship with food part, to try and figure out what's driving your bus here. Why are you making the choices that you're making? Give yourself some mental room to dig down into that stuff instead of just focusing on the food itself. So like I was just saying a minute ago, spread, sprinkle, pour is typically a really good place to start, especially if you've done this before. I'm not sure what your journey looked like with losing that 100 pounds or how that went for you, what types of foods you were eating, how you were changing the foods that you were eating. Now that you've gained some of the weight back, and obviously you don't want to gain any more back, you want to try and slow things down. Keep going with the foods that you enjoy eating. And then I would really focus on being as present and as mindful about your eating as you can. And by present, I mean paying attention to the physical food itself. How does it feel in your mouth? How does it taste? What does it smell like? What does it sound like while you're chewing it? All of those things. Be very, very present with the food that you're eating and be mindful about it at the same time. Think about what are you thinking about while you're eating, because you want to be paying attention to the food that you're eating right now, not the food that you're thinking about eating later, or the food that's still waiting for you to eat on your plate. Something I'm very fond of saying in the program and the membership is that your hands should be empty while you chew. If you're sitting there with your fork or the sandwich or the taco or whatever in your hand while you're eating, you're thinking about the food in your hand. You're not thinking about the food in your mouth. And you don't want to constantly be focused on what's coming next. Focus instead on what you have going. The more present you are, the more memories you're going to make of what you're eating, and the more satisfied you're going to feel long term, making you less likely to reach for more food after. Can you talk about the difficulty of losing weight as you get older? Sure. We can talk about anything that you would like. It does get harder to lose weight as you get older. I tend to work with people who are a little bit older. Some of my very earliest clients were all in their 70s, so I'm very familiar with the challenges facing older people as they lose weight. But in some respects, and something I would like to talk about, and I'm sorry because this isn't your question, but I would like to talk about some of the benefits of losing weight as you're older. Because there are benefits to trying to lose weight when you're older. Sure, it might be more frustrating and it might feel like it's taking longer, but as you're older, you have more patience. And I think it's easier to hold on to the perspective of why am I actually doing this? I'm doing this to get to an end goal. Whereas when we're younger, we can be a little bit less patient, slightly more impatient, and it's harder to have that focus. It's harder to just knuckle down and get it done. Now, of course, one of the biggest challenges to losing weight on the mental side of things is just how deeply ingrained your habits are when you're trying to lose weight when you're older. When you're younger, those habits are maybe a little easier to break because you haven't been doing the same thing for 40 years. But I think there's also something to be said for setting yourself free from those patterns of the last 40 plus years. Breaking free of that can feel absolutely amazing, and it's really motivating to help you keep going. I think too, focusing on the negatives isn't always helpful because then we're just telling ourselves over and over again, well, I'm too old to lose weight. I can't do it. It's so much harder for older people to lose weight. I just can't do it. And that's not the case. You definitely can do it. You do it the same way that a younger person would, only you have the benefit of more patience, more wisdom, better perspective. And I have found, having worked with hundreds of people to help them with these issues, the older someone is, the more likely they are to be willing to dig into the underlying relationship issues and to try to figure out what's actually going on so that they can just end the cycle once and for all. How do you let go of the cravings, especially for sweets? I don't. I don't let them go. Something I found though, and this is actually interesting, I was just talking about this last night on a call. Now that I'm drinking water with those drops in it, I put like Kool-Aid drops or Mio drops or any of the 0 calorie drops. I'm experimenting with them to find the ones that I like. Now that I'm using those, I have found my sweet cravings have gone through the floor. I've eaten like no candy in the weeks that I've been doing this. So I found that really helpful. So flavored water is helping me with my sweet cravings, but I didn't let them go. I don't think that it necessarily works that way. I learned how to manage them better. And I learned to not indulge myself in the same way that I used to. I found a new enough. Whereas before I would need to eat, the whole bag of cookies to feel good. Now I can have a few cookies and come away feeling like I ate the whole bag because I've shifted the way I think about those cookies and my whole process around them. I don't think you need to let go of those cravings. And I think telling yourself that you're just never going to have sugar again isn't very helpful, and it's definitely not sustainable. You're far better off to find ways to work with your cravings and to incorporate those foods into what you're eating than you are to try and completely shut it down and go cold turkey. It's not going to work. I don't do good foods or bad foods. There's just food. And when we start loading it with that type of language and we're projecting our own value system onto an inanimate object, I don't know. And I mean, I run into this with Gladys all the time, right? Where I'll put up a recipe video about something and I'll get just lambasted for the ingredients in it because it's not healthy enough. It's not real food. It's got chemicals in it. There's sweeteners in it, whatever they're so upset about. So good food and bad food is very relative. What's a good food for one person is a bad food for another. So let's just leave all the loaded language behind. And I think sweets really fall into that category because they've just been labeled as bad. If it's sweet, it's bad. And we've even hit the point now where fruit is bad because it's sweet. And it's all bullshit. Find a way to make it work within your calories and you can eat anything you want and lose weight. Did you ever exercise during your weight loss? No. I moved. Like I walked around. I had jobs and I moved, especially at the beginning. I was really moving. I was waiting tables at over 300 pounds. So yeah, that is exercise, but it was my job. Did I do the formal gym, get a trainer, all that stuff? No. I tried once. I tried curves briefly, but I actually passed out for the first time in my life during the walkthrough where like somebody just takes you to each of the stations and you try each exercise like 3 times. I passed out and they had never had that happen. I don't think they'd ever had anybody in there who was my size before. And anyway, it was nobody's fault. No, it was a positive experience. It was nobody's fault. But I was not ready to exercise or really willing to exercise, even though I'd shown up. I really wasn't willing to do it. So no, I didn't. We moved into an apartment with an elevator. Like, I had to do less stairs. Yeah, exercise just wasn't my jam. And over 300 pounds, there was no way I was comfortable doing shit. Over 200 pounds, there was no way I was doing it. So yeah, no. Oh, well, this one makes sense. Okay, what do you mean by spread, sprinkle, pour? I'm new. Sorry about that. So I've talked a little bit about it today already. Spread, sprinkle, pour is just a term that I use to describe low-hanging fruit. The easiest way to kind of kickstart your weight loss is to look at the foods you spread, sprinkle, or pour. As I said just a minute ago, those are the foods that tend to be pretty calorie dense. So by cutting out a small amount of them, you can actually make a difference in your daily calories. Like a tablespoon of mayonnaise is 100 calories, for example. I did a whole webinar just on spread, sprinkle, pour, and I developed worksheets to help you guys implement that. If you want it, it's totally free. Even the worksheets, it's all going to stay free. I'm not putting it behind a paywall. So you can get that. I'll put a link. So you can just grab a copy of that, and then you'll have the sheets to help you go through that as well. What happens if you don't eat enough calories and the weight just stays? Well, if the weight just stays, that means that you are indeed eating enough calories. It sounds like you're eating at your maintenance calories if your weight is staying the same. So you would need to drop some calories from what you're eating to see what's happening there. The weight's staying because you're not in a deficit. And I'm sorry, these are not fun things that I have to say, because it happens a lot. I hear from people all the time who say that, I'm doing all the right things. I'm tracking my calories. I'm weighing my food. I'm doing everything exactly perfectly right. And the scale's not moving. What's going on? Well, we probably need to have a conversation about how accurately you're tracking your calories. It's hard to track your calories accurately. It is not an easy thing to pull off. So try to be really patient with yourself. If your weight is staying and you're saying that you're not eating enough calories, I would kind of need to know, how are you defining enough? How did you figure out how many calories you're supposed to be taking in the first place? And then how are you tracking them? And how consistently are you in that deficit? Because that's the other side of this. Calories, they're not just isolated. It's not like every day gets a box. One really bad day, you could eat your calories for a couple of days in one really bad day. Let's say, you've got 2,000 calories a day to play with. That means you've got 14,000 calories a week. Cool. You're supposed to be eating in a 500 calorie deficit. Let's say that you eat at maintenance 3 of those days, and 4 days you're in a deficit. You're not going to lose the full pound that week because you were eating at maintenance. Let's say you eat at maintenance 3 of those days and you go over 2 or 3 of those days. You could end up theoretically gaining weight that week, depending on how those calories averaged out. So it's all about consistency too. Just curious, what does the pink hair mean to you? Does it have anything to do with breast cancer? No, it does not have anything to do with breast cancer. It did happen after I got sick. After the pancreatitis and the 5 months in hospital, my hair fell out. Not all of it, but a lot of it, and most of it. And I ended up with a super, super short pixie cut. It was the short. It was the shortest my hair had ever been. And, parts of my head were shaved, and I'd always been very vain about my hair. So I went into the hospital with hair that was hanging down to my hips, and I came out of the hospital with hair that had been, what was left of it, had been chopped basically to my chin, and then it had to go significantly shorter than that. When it grew back in, or started to grow back in, I wanted to play with it, and I wanted to find ways to kind of exert my personality, because I was an early adopter of crazy hair. I've always had crazy hair colors. When I was really heavy, that was one of the ways that I drew attention away from my body. If I had, fire engine red hair, nobody was looking. I felt like nobody was looking at me. They were too busy looking at my hair. That's also why I had amazing shoes and why I had amazing purses. Not just because I couldn't fit into any of the clothes that I wanted. I wanted to have things with me that would draw attention away from me. And by having this wild, crazy hair all the time, that drew attention away from me. That wasn't why I did it after I got sick. I'd never tried it. Pink was the one color that I had never, ever tried. We tried it. And then I got into this whole flamingo thing, because I have a thing for flamingos, as some of you know, and it's not because they're pretty and it's not because they're pink. It's because flamingos are total badasses, right? Like they're insanely resilient birds. They can stand in water that'll like melt the flesh off other creatures, and they're very, very resilient, badass birds. And I kind of latched onto that. And now my hair has been this color for, oh my gosh, I think it's been 7 years, 7 or 8 years that my hair has been different shades of pink. It's really kind of just become a part of who I am. It's not even, I'm a blue person, not a pink person. Pink was never my thing. But because of the flamingo thing and because of everything that's happened to me in my crazy life since, and this whole crazy online world thing that's been happening since, it's stayed pink. And I think it probably is going to stay pink. I can't picture myself with any other color hair at all. But it reminds me of who I am, and it reminds me of where I've been, and it reminds me of the commitment that I made when I was sick, that I was going to try and do something to help other people no matter what. And here I am. So I'm still trying, and the hair's still pink. What's your opinion of all these weight loss injections that seem to be the new thing for weight loss? I'm not sure. I think they're a tool. I think they could be a very valuable tool. I think like all the other weight loss tools out there, so long as you're doing the internal work to figure out your relationship with food at the same time, concurrently to taking the injections, you can't get away from doing the work. We have an 85% recidivism rate. We don't know what that's going to look like for these meds because nobody's been on them long enough for us to know. And I know that this isn't across the board for all of the injections, but doctors, I think, are starting to be pretty open about the fact that with some of these injections, you're going to have to be on them for the rest of your life. Some of these meds are a lifelong commitment if you want to keep the weight off. In some ways, that kind of scares me because, again, we don't know what the long-term side effects are. And you're saying that we have to be on them forever. The weight loss drugs right now kind of feel like a pharmaceutical company's dream come true. It's a drug that everybody wants because it seems like everybody, even people who've only got 5 or 10 pounds to lose, everybody wants the shot, right? So it feels like the demand is there. But what makes it perfect for the pharmaceutical companies is the fact that you have to commit to be on it forever. And these drugs aren't cheap. When it's $600-700 a shot and you've got to take it forever, I don't know. It seems like a really good deal for the pharmaceutical companies, but I'm not so sure how well it's going to work out for the rest of us and for those of us who are taking them. But I do think they're a valuable tool. I'm very fortunate, even with my diabetes, I haven't needed to go on to any of those drugs. I'm able to control my diabetes just with diet and movement. Walking is the best way I'm able to keep my blood sugar in check. So I feel like I'm very fortunate that way. But I do worry about things like long-term side effects, and I worry about, what's going to happen down the road. We don't know if it crosses the placenta. Like there are so many questions that I have about these drugs and about what they'll mean long term and about the differences between the different medications. It's a lot. I think they're a valuable tool. I'm definitely not crapping on anybody who's taking them. We've all got to do what we need to do to get this weight off. I would just urge you to please do the work too. Because if your insurance company cuts you off because you got to your goal weight and you no longer qualify for them and you can't afford to buy them anymore, what are you going to fall back on? Or if you have an adverse reaction to them, the side effects for some of these meds are pretty scary. I've dealt with intestinal paralysis before, and I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. So I certainly wouldn't wish gastroparesis on anyone either, but I know that it's a big side effect for these meds. But yeah, it's a valuable tool, but you still have to do the underlying work. The relationship with food part still has to come out on top. It has to be the most important thing that you're focused on. How tall are you? I am 5'2", I think, and a half. 5'2" and a half. That's how tall I am. So not very. You look amazing. How did you stay so disciplined throughout your weight loss journey? Well, I think it really depends on how you define disciplined, because a lot of people get very, very angry about the way that I lost my weight and would tell you that it was the exact opposite of discipline because I was eating what I wanted. Now, I know that you're not a Gladys and that this question came in genuinely, so I know that you're not angry about the way that I lost my weight. The way that I stayed disciplined was by staying focused on what I wanted, and I desperately wanted to get out of my 300-pound body and into a body that was healthier for me, a body that I felt comfortable in, one that I could easily move around in. I didn't like the physical limitations and restrictions that I was facing because of my size. I stayed as focused as I could on what I wanted, no matter how hard it got. And I told myself I just had to keep going. Because when it comes to weight loss, the only way out is through. You just have to keep going. Otherwise, you get caught in that cycle of, I got started, I lost a few pounds, I got fed up, I gained it back, I got started, I lost a few pounds, and just, you got to get off that wheel somehow. And the only way to get off that wheel is to stay on it long enough to keep yourself going all the way through to the end. I did little things. I had micro rewards and macro rewards, and I made sure to praise myself. Like, oh my God, I did so great. Like I tried to stay as positive with my self-talk as I could pretty much all the time, even though it was so incredibly hard. And I kept telling myself that it was a good thing it was taking so much time because the time's going to pass anyway. It's going to go by whether I was losing weight or not. So I might as well spend it losing the weight so that I didn't have to do that anymore. I wanted it to be over, but the only way to make it stop was to keep going. All right, we've made it to one of my favorite segments every time we do one of these episodes. It's the Good for You, Gladys question of the week. This one came in on one of my cake hack videos. There's a few of them. I'm not sure which one. But this charmer told us, she says, calories are not the problem when it comes to eating cake. Just saying. Actually, Gladys, they are the problem. They are 100% the problem. If there was a 0-calorie cake, it wouldn't be an issue at all. So you see, she was criticizing me because I think, yeah, this was definitely on the I took 1,000 calories out of a cake thing. And her whole point was that it doesn't matter how many calories you take out of the cake. That's not the issue. Oh, yes, it is. It absolutely is. If I used to sit down and eat a half a cake, like a half a pan of cake, brownies, whatever, and let's say, just for ease of math, that pan of brownies was 3,000 calories, and I'm going to eat half of it. That's 1,500 calories. Let's say, though, that I got 1,000 calories out of that pan of brownies. I'm still going to eat those brownies, that cake, whatever. I'm still going to eat it. But now it's 1,000 calories less, and I usually eat half the pan. Well, we've just taken that cake from 3,000 calories to 2,000 calories, and instead of taking down 1,500 calories, I'm going to take down 1,000. Sounds like a pretty big win to me. And it sounds like the calories are in fact the issue. But thank you so much for coming out, Glads. I will see you again next week. What terminology do you use when people ask how you lost weight? I say that I lost weight with a calorie deficit and intermittent fasting. I used to say intermittent fasting and a calorie deficit, but then people get hung up on the intermittent fasting part and they don't hear the calorie deficit part, because the whole thing is intermittent fasting won't work unless you're in a deficit. And I know right now it seems to be picking up a lot of popularity and gaining a lot of steam. But the reality is that, you could be eating in a 1-hour window and fasting 23 hours a day. And if in that 1-hour window, you're taking down as many calories as your body needs to maintain its weight, you're not going to lose any weight. If in that hour you bring in your maintenance TDEE plus some calories, you're going to gain weight, even with a 1-hour eating window. It's that easy to do. So I make sure now to really emphasize the calorie deficit part, because yes, intermittent fasting was the vehicle that got me there, but calorie deficit was driving it. Without the calorie deficit, I wouldn't have gotten anywhere at all. How do I manage the wanting to eat all the things when I don't have the calories for it? I've been very snacky lately. It's hard. It's super hard to balance what we want to eat versus what we have the calories for. And that's this game, right? That's the nature of this beast. It's finding that balance. It's learning to eat higher volume, lower calorie foods so that you have room for the more calorie dense things that you want to eat later. Quite often what I'll tell people to do is to block off calories that day, like first thing in the morning. So for example, last night I was on a call with the flamingos in the forum and someone was talking about their nightly hot chocolate ritual. Now, sometimes they'll have a hot chocolate and maybe they'll have a couple graham crackers with it, but they don't do it all the time. And my suggestion was, okay, well, first thing in the morning when you're sitting down to your coffee, log that cup of hot chocolate and the graham crackers. I also gave her my hot chocolate recipe because we took her from at least 70 calories to 5. So that's going to help significantly too and leave more room for the graham crackers. But by tracking it first thing in the morning, she can act all day like those calories are spent, because they are. Because the reality is she's going to go for the hot chocolate and the graham crackers no matter what. And she knows she's going to do it whether she has the calories or not. So the choice to not log it in the morning and to just every night at 9 o'clock be like, oh, oopsie, I guess I don't have any calories left, but I still want to have my hot chocolate. That's a form of self-sabotage at that point, right? Because you do have the awareness of what you're doing and you're choosing to not acknowledge it and do what you need to do to find the accountability. So I would suggest blocking off some calories in the morning, even if it's like 150, that way you can just, grab 3 cookies, whatever. Block something off so that you have room for those snacks later. Try to anticipate what you're going to want and balance things out a little bit more over the course of your day that way. Knowing that you only eat at night, I'm interested in how you deal with situations where you'll be dining during the day. Say if you met someone for breakfast or lunch, do you eat at those times just as a one-off? And if so, how do you incorporate this into your day? Do you shift the time frame for eating so that you are still just eating in the normal number time frame of that day? Or do you spread the calories and continue to eat up to your normal cutoff time? Then she added that she hopes that it makes sense. Yeah, there's no worries, because the answer is yes to all of those things. So yes, if I meet someone for breakfast or lunch, I'm going to eat breakfast or lunch with them. And then instead of moving my window, I will just sort of stretch the rest of my day out. So normally I wouldn't eat my first meal until dinner time. That's fine. I had lunch today, so we're just going to kind of slide things across. So instead of, like, I would have my dinner, which I guess would be breakfast for everybody else, but my 6 o'clock meal, I have my 6 p.m. meal. And then typically I would have something else at like 9:30. That would then be smaller. My dinner would also probably be smaller, and I wouldn't need as many snacks throughout my evening eating window when I would normally be eating. So I don't try to cut it off. I don't try and just shift the window. So if normally I start at 6 and today I started at 8, we're just going to drop it back. No, because I won't make it. And I know I won't make it if I try to do that. The window gets extended and the calories just get spread thinner. Did you get any flack from your doctors when you were hospitalized for your intermittent fasting window? No, because I didn't do it. That's not, I don't even think that was an option. And actually, it wouldn't have been a problem because I wasn't allowed to eat. So, well, maybe this could apply to the last 2 times I was hospitalized. So I was hospitalized in 2022 and 2023. And no, in both of those cases, you eat on the hospital schedule. I try to be as good a patient as I can, and I do what I'm told. And so when the tray shows up, whatever's edible on the tray, you eat. I made absolutely no attempt, none, zero, nada attempt to try and convince the hospital to let me eat. No, absolutely not. I do what I'm told when I'm in the hospital. I take the trays when the trays come. And no, so I never caught any flack for it. And when I was hospitalized for the 5 months, I wasn't eating. Oh gosh, they didn't even start trying to teach me how to eat again until I'd been in hospital for 3 months. So no, it never came up. It wasn't an issue. That's a great question, but it never came up, and it wasn't an issue. When I was losing my weight, my doctor knew the first time, because I just had a GP at that period, and he knew what I was doing and he was fine with it. I was medically supervised for that and it was okay. The second time I lost the weight, I don't remember it. I didn't specifically go to a doctor to discuss my intermittent fasting window, but my specialists were aware of what I was eating and when, and it never came up as a problem. I'm still confused by the whole macros thing. They say it's really important for weight loss. My fitness pal always tells me when I go over on my carbs and my fats, even if I'm only doing 1,300 calories, I'm afraid that I won't lose weight. Don't be. I catch hell for this all the time. I had somebody post on one of the videos for one of these episodes on the YouTube video, and they were like, I stopped listening as soon as you said protein doesn't matter. I always think it's hilarious when people announce that they're leaving the room. And then she stopped listening to the podcast and then must have spent 20 minutes typing out this massive comment about how wrong I was. And I'm thinking, I guess this was the first time you ever listened and you by your own admission, stopped listening partway through. So, okay. Yeah, she'd be mad by this answer too. So I really hope that Gladys at least, isn't listening to this one. No, you don't have to worry about it. Ignore my fitness pal. And this is where I think it's so funny, because the same people who will get behind keto or carnivore, right, and they get all worked about carbs, don't worry about going up on fat, which is kind of hilarious when you stop and think about it, right? You don't have to worry about that. Your calories. And at this stage, and especially when we're talking about extreme weight loss, even when we're not though, even when we're talking about, 20, 30 pounds, don't worry about the macros. Worry about getting your calories in check, and then worry about the macros if you feel like it later. Things like protein, yes, it is important as a macro. It will help you to feel more satisfied. It'll help you to feel more full, all of those things. And they're very helpful for the satisfaction part of weight loss and for the mental part of it. But when it comes to the nuts and bolts of it, to the calories in, calories out, this is how you lose weight as a human being. No, you don't have to worry about it. Look at the people who are eating, drinking the butter coffee. I'm sure their MyFitnessPals are going off like crazy too, because that's a lot of fat, but they're able to lose weight. And the reason they're able to lose weight is because they're in a calorie deficit. Keto, which is a high fat diet, works because it puts you in a deficit. Carnivore works because it puts you in a deficit. And on both of those diets, you can still gain weight because there's no guarantee that they will put you in a deficit unless you know what's happening with your calories. Focusing on macros is a distraction from the actual work of focusing on calories to get your weight off. That's a jigsaw puzzle you can try to piece together all the time. Well, this week I lost weight and I was below, my carbs were good. My macros were good every day. But the next week, your macros are good every day and you didn't lose any weight. Why? It was your calories. So focus on the calories first. Our last question came in specifically about the program, but I wanted to answer it for everybody in case you have that question too. So the Flamingo asked, if we have questions or need advice, are you there to help? I'm a very visual person and I move at a slower pace, but I want to get going. The answer is yes, I'm there to help. There's Flamingo Forum. I'm in there. I also very actively respond to emails and questions from people, or that come in from people who are doing the program. And the good thing about the program too, and especially you saying that you're visual and you move at a slower pace, well, I have great news for you. The videos are all visual. It's a video program. You can read the transcripts, but it is a visually provided thing. It's not just written. It's not a book that you go and read. They're video lessons for you. And once you buy it, you have access for life. So every week you're given a new set of lessons, a new workbook, a new video on how to use the workbook. You get all those things released to you every week, but you have access to them for the rest of your life. So you can go back and rewatch them and revisit things as much as you need to. Because there are over 800 non-repeating segments, a lot of times people want to go back and look at this and try and catch more from that, because you're going to pick up on different things as you work your way through based on what's important to you and what's significant for you based on what you're facing in that moment. So I wanted to make sure that everybody would have the chance to go back and watch things over again, which was another reason why I moved it from the one-on-one coaching, because it was just too hard moving everybody through a week at a time. There wasn't that room to go back and review things and revisit things with people. And by doing it in this format, everybody can watch it completely at their own pace. But yes, I'm absolutely there for anyone in the program who has questions or who needs advice. That's the whole point of stopping the one-on-one coaching, was that I would free up my time to be able to do that for people in the program and for my members in the forum. If you want more information about the program, you can find a link about it down below. You can send me any questions you have, and you can always go to disruptingobesity.com to find that there for yourself as well. Next week, we're back with our 4th spring cleaning episode. We've got more questions. I might even do 2 from Gladys. We'll see what kind of a mood I'm in when we get there. But in the meantime, I hope you have an amazing week. Thank you for sending in your questions. Please keep them coming. Keep trying, keep tracking. Don't be intimidated and don't give up. We've totally got this. Thank you for listening to Disrupting Obesity with Charlotte Skanes. If you know it's time to take back control, lose the weight, and keep it off, reach out to me privately with a direct message on Instagram that says ready, so you can start disrupting obesity.